If you've ever felt the pressure to have it all figured out before you start, this episode is for you. Today's guest is an entrepreneur, investor, and branding expert who has helped thousands of people build personal brands that actually convert, raise millions in capital, and made the leap from trading and real estate into marketing and hedge funds. But it's how he built it all that stands out the most. Dropped out of college, started with zero experience in sales or business, and built it all by trusting his gut, learning through experience, and betting on himself when no one else would. In this episode, you'll learn what it takes to build real grit, how to get started in personal branding, even if you have no idea where to begin, and how to trust your instincts in a world full of noise and a lot of fake perfection. We'll talk about discipline, self belief, and the power of authenticity, and what it really takes to see opportunities most people miss. It's my honor to welcome Sergio Troconis. Welcome to Great American Underdog. How you feeling today, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, man. I appreciate you for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you here. We've been connected for some time, no surprise, via social media. And
Correct.
I've just watched your growth, and it's been really awesome to see. And I'm really excited to share your story and unpack it a little bit for the audience, because a lot of people see the end result on social
hmm
media, as you know, and not a lot of the growth. And we're about growth here at Great American Underdog. So take us back to the
Sure.
point where you were going to college. Tell us what you were going to college for. What ultimately made you decide to drop out?
Yeah. So I went to college to pursue medicine. I wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon. And down the road, I always did like extracurricular activity and odd jobs in the medical space. And eventually I worked at a hospital for a summer. It was only 3 months. I actually lasted a month and a half at that place. And I worked at the emergency room while I was studying in college. And that was my decision maker. I was always in and out with medicine because, my family always told me, like, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor. I expressed interest one time and they were like, this guy is going to be a doctor for sure. So they pushed that narrative my entire life. And I actually started to enjoy it until that moment. I worked at the hospital. I realized that that lifestyle wasn't for me. I was more looking for freedom in what I was going to do. And I still love to help people. And that's why I wanted to do it, but just the lifestyle that comes with being a doctor. So that was my transition. I transferred over to business administration. You bet your ass that that was a big deal at my household. The entire family was like, well, the only doctor we had is now, quitting on us. So that was a whole ordeal. But yeah, I went into business, and to about a year in business administration, I dropped out. So I really was like 2 years in college. I didn't get my AA. It was right before the AA. And I eventually got a corporate job. So I was always hungry. I worked as a personal trainer, and I got an opportunity to work at a real estate development firm. And that's really where everything started in business. I knew nothing about business. Everything was always biology, anatomy. And then I needed to start learning about marketing, sales. I didn't even know what revenue was, and that first corporate job was what helped me.
It's incredible as you're saying that, Sergio, because, I think about even my family,
hmm
and how our parents, a lot of times, we're about the same age, you and I think, and they just want us to be safe. And a lot of times, them wanting you to be a doctor was their idea of safety, because they knew you'd always have a job, you'd always have work, you're very smart. So that was a no brainer for me. It was accounting. I said I wanted to go into
There
accounting,
you
and it
go.
was my dad was just like, okay, go after it, go through school, finish
Yeah.
college, get out, get a job, you'll have health insurance, you'll be set, because it was a safety thing. But something inside you, you knew there was something deeper,
Mhm.
something that you wanted to go after. And you mentioned the word freedom. And it sounds like that was really in your brain at that stage of your life. So just talk to me about, like, what made you decide to finally take the leap to, let's just say, drop out of college. Was it that freedom, that pursuit of it?
Mhm.
And what gave you the courage to say, I can do this?
Um, it was a conversation I had with a doctor. I asked him how his family was, and he said he hadn't seen them in weeks. And I didn't like that. That didn't hit me the right way. I've always had a problem with having bosses. That's another thing. I don't like to have bosses. I have some call it an authoritative. In Spanish, you say problema de autoridad. I don't know how to say it in English, but I feel like I've always had that, and I love to just manage my own time. And there's obviously the money aspect, right? As a doctor, you need quite a bit of time to start making the money that you want to make, right? I wanted to be well off. I didn't want to have an average income. I wanted to have an above average income and eventually become a millionaire, have my own firm. But for that, I saw a 30-year time frame versus getting into something that can buy my freedom a lot quicker. And the realm of business was only getting faster with things like social media and trading and, the marketing that I would see online. So I saw that as the opportunity. So it was money and freedom. And I knew that since freedom was my biggest priority, money is what buys it. And then finding stability in how I keep that freedom and how I continue to grow it just comes in how you operate business. But that came way later down the road. Initially, it was just those two factors. I'm very clear that I want money and freedom. I want to be my own boss. And that was the biggest deciding factor. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes total sense. The freedom element, I think that people see that on the other side of successful entrepreneurs, right? Like they see this freedom, but they don't see like what happens behind the scenes. Like everything that you just described, there was those moments, those aha moments
Right.
of saying like, here's the doctor, here's a potential version of who I could become, telling me about his life. And I'm feeling a certain level of contrast between that and who I believe I'm capable of becoming and where I really see myself. And it sounds like there was some level of wanting that reality to happen sooner than later.
100%. Yeah. There was another moment that I went to a yacht show, and I have an uncle. He was a mentor of mine in the very beginning in business. When I dropped out, he was the guy I would ask questions. I started developing an application and I tried to get him to invest. And he was like, you know, nothing, like just bootstrap your way in. Um, but he was a big mentor of mine. And the point of this is that we went to a yacht show. He used to sell yachts, and we were talking, my buddy and I with him, and he was telling my buddy, you're going to be rich very soon. And then he looked at me and he's like, a little longer for you, but I know you could do it too. And I'm like, that fucking pissed me off. And that was another one. I'm like, okay, this is definitely something I'm going to do is drop out. But you kind of, when you drop out, you're never ready. I had 100% confidence that I was going to make it happen just because I was driven. I had zero skills, but I was fully convinced in my ability to execute. You need to be fully convinced in that. Doesn't matter how you're going to do it, doesn't matter what the end goal is going to look like, as long as you have a vision to where you want to go and you're delusionally inspired by your own activity. That's what matters most. If you're waking up every day and you know that every single decision that you're making is geared towards that end goal, that is enough to continue building more and more confidence and character in your own personality. And that's exactly what I did. So every single person I saw that was semi-successful, just above me, I'd say, you know something I don't. That's why I'm here. That's why you're there. Let me ask you questions. And that just became a snowball effect. And then I got to bigger people and bigger people and bigger people. And then finally I got hired by a company because I forced it almost. I forced myself into that company because I kept telling them I can make this happen. I was driven, zero skills, and they put me in the most basic position. But it's all snowball effect. I think people are way too focused on trying to get to that end vision way too fast. They're too impatient,
Mhm.
and they really underestimate what they can do in 5 years.
Yeah, like again, like that instant gratification, but you had the belief system element that no matter what comes my way, like I'm going to navigate it.
Mhm.
And although we do want results quicker, right? Like we do want to be able to create those results as quickly as we can in our lives and our businesses. There
Correct.
is an element when you're building something bigger than you and you're making an impact on others that you have to play that long game.
Mhm.
And you have to have that long game thinking that no matter what the ups and downs, I'm just going to keep moving forward in spite of them. And then you also, because of your belief system, it sounds like had this genuine curiosity to be able to go out and find the information from people who thought differently than you. And I can say
Correct.
that that's something that I attribute my own success to is just getting in the right rooms around the right people that thought differently than me and and had higher levels of success and not
Mhm.
being afraid to ask some questions
Exactly.
and also build relationships with them.
Yep. Exactly right. Exactly right. That curiosity, that initial curiosity, uh, is something that eventually starts going away. It starts drifting away as you build success, because then you are putting yourself in the position of the person that you used to ask questions to. And it's very easy to lose sight of what got you there. So that's a challenge that I have been through as well. Like, what happens after you start making it in your business? What happens when you actually become the person that you look up to? Well, there's always going to be another person. So never stop looking for that next person. Never stop looking for the next mountain, right? You reach the top of a mountain, there's another one right behind it. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's a little challenge that will come after you start actually making things happen.
Yeah, I remember like, just going on my own entrepreneurial journey, leaving the retail automotive
Yeah.
industry, and then just this realizing that like, okay, I hit a certain point where there was this lull where something had to change in our business, and something had to change about myself and how uh the actions I took on a daily basis in order to evolve, right? So,
Mhm.
it's one thing to take that step into entrepreneurship or step into something uncomfortable, but it's another thing that when hardship shows up, and it will show up, being able to have the ability to pivot and adjust on the fly. So I'm curious, Sergio, like, what
Mhm.
role did the personal hardship piece, you mentioned on another interview, the toilet paper story. What
It's a
what
famous
role
story.
did that play? What role did that play in like shifting how you see risk, how you built grit, and ultimately
Mhm.
entrepreneurship?
So when that happened, uh, it was more of a decision maker, because when things started to go wrong in my initial business, which was trading, I have something that I like to call a circuit breaker, right? And that circuit breaker allows me to stop feeling negative emotion. You kind of meditate your way there. I used to, since I was a trader, I trained myself to stop feeling so I'm more effective on the charts, but it was so effective that I stopped feeling completely. And because of that, a consequence of that was becoming complacent, believe it or not. So I started becoming complacent where I was, because I was just getting by and I was at least paying the bills. But it wasn't that one moment that I was like, I got to take some toilet paper to save, $2.95 from the supermarket. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah,
That challenge there for me was kind of the push. Okay, now it's time to level up again. Now it's time to, start feeling the pressure and get yourself uncomfortable again, because you're too comfortable. You're getting by, you're taking some negative hits. That's fine, because you're still making some income with other trades that you're making, but that's just not enough. That's not what you want. Um, so every single challenge serves its purpose. I love that story because I think it resonates with many, many people, right? Like every time you go to a restaurant, there's a stack of toilet paper. Sometimes I'm like, they're not going to notice that there's one missing. And,
right.
never did I ever think that I'd have to take a piece of a roll of toilet paper to, you know, save $2.95. That to me was ridiculous. And that was like my wake up call. So these challenges, they're either there to teach you something that you just continuously don't see, or a wake up call to tell you, hey, like if you don't fix something around the corner, there's going to be an even bigger one that you're not ready to take head on. So, you know, every single challenge I've been through have been a blessing. And there's just bigger and bigger monsters that continue to show up every single year, every single level up. And I always go back to that moment, how am I going to take the situation? And
Yeah.
it's been a roadmap for me.
Yeah, man. And the other thing too is because I think, in just a little spirituality here, I think when you ask the universe and God
Yeah,
to become a certain type of person, they give you certain types of challenges. That is the universe and God,
correct.
in your way,
Yes.
to prove to yourself as well,
Yeah.
that you are that type of person, or that you really believe that that's what you want. Like, that's a
Mhm.
desired end result. So those moments are like, okay, I could either crash and burn, or I can pull myself up by my bootstraps and figure it the fuck out.
Exactly.
Like, and you decided in that moment, like, I'm going to figure it out. I got to this place where I'm in a down, and you had the wherewithal to realize that,
Hmm.
and then keep pushing forward. You talk about putting yourself in positions to develop grit a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does that look like in life and business for you specifically? How have you developed that grit over your career and in your life?
So I do want to clarify with that. I don't mean putting yourself in situations that make you become over leveraged in something that you can't handle, like purposefully getting into debt or purposefully, ruining something in your business just because you want to develop grit. No, I'm really talking about just thinking on what are the things that scare you the most that you need to do. What gives you the most anxiety that there's something better on the other side if you just step over it, and just continuously put yourself in that situation, in that position, right? Um, Public speaking for me is one of those. Like I'm fine with podcasts. In the beginning, obviously, it's in person specifically, like it's nerve-wracking. You're with cameras, there's everything. You don't want to say the wrong thing, but public speaking for me is one of those things. I feel nervous every single time I public speak. So what do?
Join the club.
There you go. Like it's something that never goes away. So you just get better at it. And you know that you're developing that mental grit. You're building another level of callus on your mind. And I just continuously have been putting myself in those positions. Another one is going to, for example, networking events that I know zero people. I just go and I start shaking hands like if I know the fucking audience. In reality, I'm scared shitless because I'm thinking, what are they going to say about me? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to be like, who the fuck is this guy? In reality, everybody's thinking the same thing. And you start realizing all those mental blocks that you subconsciously feel by getting yourself in those situations. And those are the things that you just continuously need to put yourself into. The only thing is I won't do is skydiving. I just think I'm like,
You too?
no, risk reward to skydiving is just not worth it for me.
Bro,
Like,
my father was 82nd Airborne and taught jump school at Fort Bragg. So like he's fine. He'll jump out of a perfectly good airplane,
right.
probably even at 72 years old. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to go on a roller coaster because I don't like the feeling of falling at all.
Right.
But what's funny about what you said is I always equate the nervousness, the butterflies
Mhm.
to boxing, because I don't care
I
how
love
long
that.
I've been boxing for 17 years. You
Mhm.
probably with Kaju Kembo.
Mhm.
Anytime that you spar, whether it's grappling or any of these things, you feel nervousness. There's a
Mhm.
certain level of butterflies in you, and I don't care how long you do it. We all get them. It's just
Absolutely.
deciding to act in spite of that, and then being able to develop that muscle memory. So you get
Mhm.
used to being nervous, you recognize what it feels like, and then you follow through and move through it anyway. And then you get on the other side and you realize, why was I even nervous to begin with? And a lot of the other people in here are probably also feeling the same way.
100%. Yeah, I mean, that happened recently. I sparred after like 5 years of not sparring. I messed up my hip, but it was one of the best sessions I've ever done. I missed it so much. I'm actually going again tonight.
Good for you.
But before that, I did feel the butterflies. Absolutely. You never get rid of it. You just kind of you reframe it. So I've been reframing everything that I feel that's either anxiousness or fear into excitement. Or something else that's positive that I can perceive. And, after that session, you're absolutely right. I felt incredible. I think it's just the fear of getting punched in the face, specifically with sparring. But after that
Yeah.
first punch, you're like, all right, we're good. Let's get to it. So I got punched in the face for the first time in 5 years, and I'm like, we're back in. And that felt
Yeah. And isn't
incredible.
it and isn't it funny though? Cause like even in business negotiation, trying to work out a partner deal, trying to sign
Mhm.
a new client, like the same kind of nervousness when they quote unquote punch you in the face with like a hard retaliation and
Right.
negotiation. And you're somebody that understands the power of collaboration. And
Mhm.
then now they just aired out they just threw their giant right hook at you, and you were able to just move out of the way because you stayed calm enough
Yeah.
in that chaos to be able to deal with it and be able to still think. So
Correct.
that comes from the element of practice.
Yeah,
Uh,
I really believe that relationships, whether in business or romantic, get better when you get past turmoil, when you get past something, an argument, right? Because the unknown of not knowing what the person is thinking or what's going to happen next is what creates the anxiety and the nervousness on what's really going to happen with this relationship, business or romantic. Is this person actually going to proceed with me? Is this person actually liking me right now? Like, how are we going to resolve the most difficult aspects? If we're able to do that, I feel more confident that we can get through anything. So if anything, I invite argument and debate in relationships because I know it's only going to be better after that if both parties are in alignment. And if the
yep.
other one is, well, then fine, because they weren't for you anyway. So it's a great way to tell who's really on your corner, who's not, and where your mind is at.
Yeah, there's something to be said about people being able to have that honest conversation together without emotion getting in the way. You're allowed to feel how you feel, right? Like that
Hmm.
psychological safe zone. But ultimately, can we continue to move forward? And that's great for the audience. Like, no matter who you're trying to build a relationship, whether it's, business or life, being able to just get those things aired out early on will allow you to continue to move forward. So I thank you for that, Sergio.
Of course.
In other interviews, I've heard you talk a lot about practice your way into greatness,
Hmm.
whether that's pitching, filming, or building your brand. Like, what does that mean for you? Like, how often do you practice, and what are the things that people should be practicing if they're looking to get into entrepreneurship or grow their business?
Practice comes in repetition. Repetition removes doubt. So whenever, if you're in sales or you're in content creation or you're in negotiation, the only way you're going to practice is by doing it, putting in the reps. Even though you kind of know the outcome of the next conversation you're going to have or the next negotiation, even though you might have the losing hand, at least that conversation was practice. Practice makes perfect. And in terms for content, that one's very important for me because that's really what I teach my branding clients. You know, majority of the creators that you see online, if they're not doing a podcast or they're just posting a story, if they're posting a reel or a long form YouTube video, usually that's scripted and practiced. Why? Because initially our brains tend to babble too much. They tend to ramble too much on things that don't matter. And the person that's trying to consume your content can only take in the concise information. So why would you want to just go one off and give your rough draft to your audience? Why would you want to do that? Is that really the standard that you have for yourself? Practice, script it out, and know exactly what you need to say. It's not like you're reading the script, but at least you know exactly what's going to come next and you know what the punchline is for that particular line. And that's really going to hit your audience. You're doing your audience a disservice by not practicing every day as an entrepreneur. That only gets you better. Without practice, theory just becomes intellectual play. You could read
Hmm.
all the books you want, but if you're not actually doing the activity that it takes to get what the book is telling you you're going to get, you're going to stay there.
Yeah, man. And also, like, that preparation goes whoever you're trying to work with or serve, whoever you wish to serve and sell to, hypothetically, when you're prepared, it shows them that you give a shit. Like,
Correct.
I definitely want to always make sure, like, even with my podcast, I show my guests that I appreciate and respect their time and I care by the amount of preparation
I
that I
love that.
do
Yeah.
beforehand.
Hmm.
And I that's where a lot of people could mess up. And then the other thing too is like activating knowledge. I talk about this with networking, and I know you'll appreciate this, which is y- people think networking is going to an event and exchanging business cards,
Yeah.
right? No, it's like, how do you activate that network after you leave, after you
Correct.
initially meet them? Do you go and then do you add value to their life? Like, do you look to serve them
Hmm.
before you ever wish to sell them,
Yep.
and actually help them solve some problems? And I think that that's a lot of times, like you said, that preparation, even in mindset
Hmm.
about what your intention is going to be, becomes very important to your success as an
Yeah. I
entrepreneur.
mean, you become almost like a successful SOP in your mind before you do it. Like, what does a successful it's so simple, but it's so overlooked. What does a successful handshake look like in a networking scenario? Have you even practiced it? Have you looked at yourself from the outside on how you look? You might look like an idiot while you think you look great. Maybe you got to fix your posture when you're speaking to people. Maybe there's something about it that is closing you out in conversation and it's creating negativity or just closeness. Those things that we don't see, usually we hire coaches for, or you could coach yourself into that. Like, I love what you said. It's because they don't care enough. They think they can wing it. You can wing your way into many things, but if you really want to care and be intentional, it's going to make the entire difference. That's what's going to make good content into great content, good relationships into great relationships. So really figuring it out boils down to what your standard is, knowing what your standard is, and then going based off of that standard. If you have low standards, well, then you have your operation. If you have
Yeah.
high standards, you have your
Your
operation.
results are going to reflect that. If you, I know that you're a systems and process guy. Like, if you have no
Yeah.
systems, your business is going to reflect that you don't have any systems.
Correct. The world is a freaking system. That's the way. That's why it goes round. Like, without systems, there would be chaos. Without systems, There wouldn't be laws. It would be a lawless
Yeah.
world. I think people don't realize this enough, and when they do, life would be much more intentional for them because it's just simply putting things in different order. That's what's going to create a better system for you. What order are you putting everything in? And then how can you be more intentional within that order?
Right. You've helped thousands of people build their own personal brand, Sergio, and you're definitely an expert when it comes to that. You've amassed an incredible following of people, and more importantly, an audience that you've made content for them. Again, going back to that care about the people you wish to serve. What's the biggest mistake you see people make when building that personal brand early on?
I think it's what you just said. They don't care. They try to sell right away. Content wise, they try to sell, they try to pitch. I see it so often with these kids that are coming out copywriting and doing all these things that they use ChatGPT with. They DM you like 50,000 times. You could tell it's an automation, but then you see their content. There's like two pictures, right? I'm sure they convert. There's nothing wrong with that. Like that's a business. But if you have, again, going back to the standards, if you have a higher standard and you want to be somebody in this space and you want to grow a real business, well then, personal branding is a very powerful way to go. And if that's the case, if you're using your personal page to generate leads, well then give it a little bit more care. Stop selling right off the bat. Give. Social media is a giving platform. People save your
Yes.
your pitches for stories once in a while and your advertisement campaigns. But your feed, like you just want to give. There's not one video on my feed, and I'm thinking here to make sure I'm not lying. I don't think there's one
I
video, maybe
probably
one
could
or two,
bet on that.
maybe one or two, that I have said, DM me, to learn
Yeah.
more. But I'm not actively saying you're going to pay $995 per month for this. No, keep it for the stories. People are not going to give a fuck about that. They want to learn something. That's the biggest mistake. And being too scared to show up enough in front of the camera. Everybody has equal
Right.
opportunity right now to reach people, just the way the algorithms are set up and how social media attention has evolved, that they're missing the point. The point here is to give. And if you're not giving, the conversion rate is going to be much lower over time.
Yeah, like Hormozy, you've probably heard him say this before. If this is what I'm giving away, you want people to say, if this is what they're giving away for free, imagine what their paid content is like. And I think that people miss that a whole lot because you can give value, you can give away the what, and the why, because people are gonna buy, like, Simon Sinek, Start With Why. People are gonna buy why you do what you do more than what you do, at first, and then you could always sell the how afterwards, and you'll connect with the right type of people because they will immediately raise their hand and show you like, "Hi, like, your message resonated with me," because you spoke directly to them in a way that showed that you care, to your point.
Exactly. 100%. That's really the game, social media, organic game. Like he does it very well. All he does is give. And he's also said something that, an objection that people have on creating free value is I'm giving away all my keys, right? Like this is my intellectual property. Motherfucker, with internet nowadays and social media, there's no intellectual fucking property. No one is safe. People will figure it out anyway. So you might as well have them learn it from you. And they're going to remember you for it, So it's either going to be from you or somebody else, because somebody else is teaching the same exact thing you are.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like you said, and it kind of brings up AI, although I wasn't planning on touching this too much, but it's so true because there's so many people out there that take AI and they go and they just post into Grok or ChatGPT or
Right.
Claude, whatever you use, and then they just get whatever kicks back out and then they post it
Yep.
and they don't personalize it or they don't ask for iterations of it. So, do
Right.
you think that, like, obviously that makes somebody's content feel manufactured, especially for somebody like me and you who could read through that shit right away and know it came from AI.
Correct.
But like, what makes someone's brand really feel authentic versus manufactured? Obviously, the extreme being just using AI, copy and paste. But what are some ways people can wrap their own authenticity into their content? Because you've said before, there's
Mhm.
no better vibration than authenticity. And I totally
Correct.
agree. Like, how
Mhm.
do they tap into that without overthinking about it?
Not overthinking about it. Like authenticity comes from not overthinking. There's obviously a parameter that you need to follow for yourself, right? If you don't want to show your kids or show your family members because you want to protect their identity, that's different. But you just got to stop overthinking it. Turn your page into a documentary about who you are. Your business is not everything that you represent. What do you represent? A brand is a representation of what you show. It's what people are going to associate you with. And if the only association is your packages and services, it's going to cause them to treat you like a commodity. They're only going to find who's the cheapest one within the options that they find. But if they start associating you with positive message and a good personality and a family man and a Christian or a Jew or whatever it is they like to follow, and they resonate because of that, that might be the converting factor. That might be the reason they pay you more, even though they know they could get the same service on another with another influencer or creator.
Yeah.
But they paid you because you're no longer a commodity. You are a brand, and brand comes from you. And then you become the culture for your business. Okay. If you want to step away from your business, you have to emulate who you are as a culture into what you're building. Okay. A lot of people have that objection as well. I don't want to be the personal brand because I want to sell this thing down the road. Of course you
Right.
do. We all do. But it starts with you. How do you think Apple was built? Who do you think Apple came from?
Yeah.
The founder. Who do you think Amazon came from? Hyper aware about the customer. The founder, it didn't come from nothing. It didn't come from a ChatGPT prompt. It came from genuine care and attention from one person that was then turned into a culture so that people can follow suit. You're replicating many yous in your business, but it starts with you. So you got to show it all.
Yeah, exactly. I think people don't realize that a lot of times, that I just got to be continuing to show up for the people I want to serve and sell,
Exactly.
ultimately, because they're going to buy me. And even in automotive, like I tell people this all the time, like you have two Ford dealerships down the road from each other. Like, what's the differentiator? You got the same cars, you got the same programs from the manufacturer. Like, are you going to be the person that they do business with, or the other dealership? Well, it depends on you at the end of
Right.
the day, the type of experience you create. And there's times where I've seen people say, well, I'm not that type of person, meaning
Mhm.
they want to separate their personal brand from their business, when really I think that you and I share the philosophy that they're intertwined. Would you like kind of elaborate on that?
They do intertwine. You don't have to show up as a personal brand. I do respect that decision. Whenever somebody says, I want to
Okay.
be separated from it, that's where the conversation of how can we grab your belief and your operating system internally and replicate that on the business, right? How can we replicate that with your employees? How can we have people who work with you operate the same way you do so that at least on camera, it looks like if you are operating this thing? My next thing is like, you're leaving money on the table by doing that. Like that's my first
Right.
comment. Rethink it, because you're fucking leaving money on the table. Nowadays, personal branding, even billionaires are doing it because they know that it brings new verticals of opportunity. Don't be so short-sighted that it's because you just want to exit your business that you don't want to be a part of it. This is an entity within itself, right? You put your name on your business, not the other way around. Right now, influencers are putting
Right.
their name on businesses and they are generating billions in revenue. Look at Rihanna. Look at all these influencers. Didn't Hailey Bieber have like a beauty brand too?
Yeah, man. Kylie
Rihanna,
Jenner,
Kylie
Rihanna with
Jenner.
Fenty. Yep.
They're putting their names on these businesses, and
No
because of
question.
that, they're bringing their cult-like following into these operations, and that's why people are deciding to purchase. But Rihanna didn't start in the beauty space; she started as an artist. She just created her own persona, and now she's bringing that to everything else. Conor McGregor with his whiskey brand, The
Mhm.
Rock with his whiskey brand, like they're all doing it. Why
Yeah.
do you think you know more than these billionaires? Why are you holding yourself back with an opportunity that's at your fingertips that's literally free to post? You just got to pick up your phone and post. You don't need me. You don't need anybody. I'm here to help you get there faster.
Yeah,
But if you want to do it
you're a guy.
yourself, right? If you want to do it yourself, you got it. Like you don't need me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But I can accelerate. But Sergio can
Yeah,
accelerate
but
it
I
for
can
you, just
accelerate.
FYI.
Yeah.
Low key little softball pitcher there, bro. But it's true though. You can get all the help you need to figure out whatever desired end result you want in your life.
Mhm.
If you really want it and you care about the people that you're going to provide a service to, you can get there. And then
Mhm.
like you can even look at these billionaires as an example of like they're not scared to shift their brand identity. They're not scared to
No.
try something else. Yes, do they have capital behind them, and can that be scary when you don't have the capital?
Hmm.
Sure, but sometimes you just gotta also realize it's time to make a shift and maybe make an adjustment. Like Grant Cardone one time said in a, interview with Scott Joseph, who we're partnered with in a business event we run with him.
Hmm.
He said, Scott did marketing. He owned a marketing company for automotive. He goes, "Scott, I was doing sales training with his New Orleans accent. I was doing sales training, and all these guys didn't really want sales training. They wanted more leads. They wanted what you had,
Right. Right.
and like just paying attention to that and allowing yourself to shift
Hmm.
into that. And you've done that very, very well, Sergio. You pivoted
Thank
from
you.
those
Thank
early
you.
days in real estate investing and trading, and that's probably something you still do, to
Yeah.
the marketing company, being the COO with Kearns Marketing, and even now to hedge funds. Like, what are the moments in your life that made you realize it was time to shift vehicles? Because I think that a lot of people out there, they don't know when it's time to shift that vehicle. They don't know when the burn the boats moment actually is. So I'm just curious, like, when does that happen to you in your life, and what made you decide it was time to make a shift?
There's really not a perfect answer for that. I think everybody's different there, but for me specifically is when you're not happy for an extended period of time doing the same thing. If you haven't been happy doing what you're doing for 6 months to a year, it's time to shift, right? Beyond the money, you might be making money, you might not be making money, but if you're dreading waking up to do the thing that you're doing and it's your business, dude, you got to shift. If you're not happy doing it, either give your role to somebody else. If you're making the money, that's your biggest opportunity. Cut your money off by half if you need to give your role to somebody else. You're going to be way happier knowing you have some passive income coming in that somebody else is taking care of, and you could reinvest that capital into something else. So for me, a lot of my shifts haven't really been because of unhappiness. They have been because of an opportunity that I saw. So
Right.
that's another one. If you see the opportunity, vet it, definitely vet it. Everything we've done ourselves first before we offer it to the marketplace to confirm its proof of concept.
Yeah.
And if it's good enough, then we say, let's make a business out of this. That's where the hedge fund idea came out of. We ran into a few opportunities. Some of them failed, some of them didn't, some of them won. But, what we have never stopped doing is shooting our shot. We always shoot our shot. We see a good opportunity, we create a vehicle, and we go out there and shoot it to the marketplace and see what happens, but we always vet it ourselves. Those are two different avenues that people should be taking constantly.
Yeah, well, because I mean, the game constantly is changing and evolving, especially with the acceleration of technology, and just how you can help people in different
Yeah.
spaces is
Mhm.
changing.
I'm
But
getting
it's
into
such a
AI
great.
agents right now. Yeah, I just had a conversation this morning with a guy from Poland, and he's going to help me. We're going to partner together to build some AI agents that have to do with like automations and posting and editing and all these things that are just above my pay grade. I don't understand them, but I
Yeah,
find people who understand them, who are already doing them. I get context from them. I try to learn because I don't want to be ignorant in conversations with people who know
right.
about this. But up to that point, I then start looking for opportunities and connections to what is needed out there. So I'm very good at, okay, finding what questions people are asking and then finding solutions and vehicles to provide to them. And that's what sells, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny how that genuine curiosity just keeps showing up, right? And like,
Always,
just
always.
it exactly. I think it's a big mindset shift, to be able to say like, "Hey, I don't know the skills
Mhm.
that I need to do this or execute on it as the game continues to change, but I can find somebody who does and partner with them and collaborate with them
That's
and
right.
also bring value to them in my own way."
Mhm.
Um, I'm curious, like, having the long-term vision, like playing the long game. I know that's a big deal for you. How do you continue to do that, play that long game as like we're talking about the game keeps changing? Like what do
Mhm.
you do to I guess innovate in your own business and life?
Business fundamentally is the same. As long as the business continues to have demand and there's supply for that demand and you're able to keep it leveled, then you continue to operate that business. If you continue to like your business, you continue to operate and level up and add new services and verticals that continue to grow it. My thing has always been starting on with the bootstrapping. We never have raised capital for any business other than a hedge fund, which is obviously for investments. That's different. But everything we have been bootstrapping. And as we bootstrap, then we get into the fulfillment operations, all that side of things that makes our business level up. So you got to choose what are the few, one or two businesses that you want to focus on heavily at first and grow to its maximum potential. And then you start looking for other opportunities to trickle in, because then you start getting flashed by these shiny objects that take away momentum from what you're already building. So I've had to become, I haven't been the entire time. I've had to become disciplined with that, because I used to tend to, yes, run the marketing agency. We are converting a ton of clients, but then this thing is like kind of dragging me this way. And then I let this go a little bit. No, I had to create a vehicle that was self-sustained. And I knew that it was going to keep growing without my personal hands in there every single day, so that then I could look for more opportunities. And that's what's allowed us, myself, Cody, Justin, to continuously look, because our operations continue to level up. So you got to choose. You got to choose what you want to maximize and what you are just doing for a quick buck, for example, an investment opportunity, whatever it is.
Yeah, and entrepreneurship in no way, shape, or form, when done right, is for a quick buck.
Correct.
So that's the first, I think, mindset thing that people need to get out of their heads. This is not an instant gratification journey
Nah,
by any means whatsoever.
not worth it.
And then
It's not worth it
yeah,
for
and
that.
then get out right now. Like,
Yeah.
if you believe
Yeah.
that, leave. And then the one thing, like focusing on the one thing. I had the privilege to interview Bruce Buffer one time,
Okay.
and he had told me about just loading that pipeline with the one thing.
Absolutely.
Like, get so freaking good at that one thing. And then you can start to branch off. And I think so many people try to be everything for everyone in their market. Like the
Correct.
guy with the coat that opens it and has everything on the inside for you.
What
Yeah,
do you
I got
want?
hairbrushes.
Yeah.
What you want? Like,
Uh-huh.
you can't be that guy. So focus on that one thing. That's huge.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's very easy to get distracted by the shiny object.
A
Um,
1,000%.
I want to just shift into a little bit more of trusting the process and leadership and learning here too, which this has all been great up to this point, Sergio,
Mhm.
in regards to that. But you specifically said something I heard before, which is the eyes don't see, the
Mhm.
mind does.
Mhm.
And I think that you're talking about visualization, but can you tell me what that means to you and how that shaped your journey?
Sure. It's beyond visualization. I think it's useful in everyday scenario, like the simple exercise of you driving down the road and, somebody asks you, can you count in the last 5 minutes, how many red cars did you see? You're like, no, I can't, even though there might've been a few, there might've been 5, 10. And then now you're hyper aware of red cars and you're going to start seeing 10 of them. So what I mean by the eyes don't see, the mind does, is we're constantly so focused on our own shit that we tend to not see opportunity that's right in front of us, and not see dangers and awareness that we should have that's right in front of us, because we're so hyper focused on one thing, which is good, but you have to remove the veil sometimes and kind of, okay, look around and see, okay, where am I standing right now? It might not be where I think I am. So you need to self-analyze where you're standing and look for opportunities that might be presenting themselves. So the eyes are looking at something, but they're not really taking it in as information that's useful for you. So you have to use your mind to perceive
Mm,
that and then break it down for you to really understand, oh shit, this is right in front of me and I wasn't even seeing it. That's why coaches and agencies exist, by the way, because all we do is help you condense the time between where you are and where you want to be. Like there's a fold that comes in and we bring you about here because of our experience. Do you want to take 8 years that it took me to build a brand, or do you want to do it in fucking 6 months? Well, obviously
right.
6 months, because there's so many frameworks and steps and systems that I have developed in 8 freaking years that you don't need to do, because I have the answers. Here you go. And that condenses that time. It folds it into a shorter time period.
Yeah,
But a coach
that
helps
speed
you
of
see
transformation.
things, yeah, that you can't see. So the eyes usually don't see. They're there for your mind's perception.
Yeah, and I kind of parallel that to active listening. Like, do
Mhm.
you listen to understand, or are you listening
Correct.
just to tell somebody how you feel? And I think that
Yeah.
that's also in the networking world. Like, that's where people mess up as well, because they're just looking to respond to say their point, so that way they can kind of edify or validate that they know as well
Mhm.
on a subject. When
Exactly.
really, like, just take the time to actively listen and really understand what somebody's trying to tell you. And if you do that, just like you're saying, and you're in the, eyes don't see, the mind does, you're
Mhm.
gonna recognize there's a lot more opportunity around you that you may have been missing because you had those blinders on.
You really did your homework, man, because I don't remember the last time I said that on social media. I say it a lot. Like with my fiance, I'm like, babe, remember the eyes don't see, because she says some
Yeah,
stuff that she's like, fuck, I didn't see this. Like the eyes don't see. And she's like, ah, shut up. That doesn't, that's not real.
your
And then
your
you
fiance
realize,
does the same thing my wife does when I tell her things that are
right,
good for her.
right,
She's like, "Get out of here!
get out of
Get
here.
out of here with all that."
I'm
But
like, okay.
yeah, man, listen, I try to just dive deep so people can understand the why behind
Yeah,
the stories I say. So
good.
and there's so much to you. Like there's layers to you that I think people see a certain thing on social media, even with myself. But
Yeah,
then there's layers, like how Shrek says, like an onion, right? Like
correct,
we all
correct.
got
Yeah,
we all got layers. So I appreciate you sharing that with me today as well,
of
man.
course.
Um, in an era full of the noise as well, right? Like we take our blinders off. There's a lot of things going on.
Mhm,
You also talk about doing your own due diligence. I
mhm,
find this so frustrating, especially in social media. Somebody DMs me, a friend, family member. Oh my God, look at this headline, and I'm like, do you realize where this is coming from? Like, do you
mhm,
realize how taken out of context this is? And
mhm.
I think that people, when they're trying to grow, whether business, life, etc., um, doing their own due diligence is so important. So, like when it comes to mentors, investments, or new ideas, like how do you do your own due diligence in this era full of noise out there?
So always trust but verify. There's layers to this. There's a funnel that you need to create for anything that you're searching for. If it's coaches or it's agencies, you got to have a framework for each one that asks the right question. So if it's a coach, first of all, you got to make sure that that coach actually did what they are selling you that you are going to do. Like that's number one. Obviously, you're not going to ask for bank statements unless you have the balls to do that. Maybe coaches share that, but like I don't have the answer to that right now. But you got to have your framework to every single thing that you look for, and that framework is built by education. And the education comes from the top of the top that you can learn from either through books or articles or web searches or ChatGPT that you then, go and verify. But I'm a big believer in frameworks so that it's easier for you to make decisions on the fly whenever you're looking for something. So if you're looking for a
I mean,
coach, build your list of frameworks and questions that you can check off. Okay. And when you do that, then you could choose who is the right person to work with you. And the coaching and consulting aspect is interesting as well because not
yeah,
every coach, for example, who coaches Tony Robbins, he has a coach, but the coach that he has, I'm sure doesn't have the same level of success. There's coaches who can teach you certain things. They don't have to have the same level of success or more than you. They just might have a framework that can help you level up on things that you don't see. So it's a paradox. It becomes very complicated with vetting, and we have vetted people in the past that we've done business with, and it went horribly, even though we did an analysis of their entire business and persona, and it all got cleared out, but they were still a bad actor. And we've done business with people who we've also vetted that came clear, and we did incredibly with them, so
yeah.
and that comes with experience, man. There's no other way around it. There's no other protection to, not getting the wrong information. You just have to become self-aware and knowing how to vet your
Yeah.
own stuff.
I think part of it is also like trusting your gut, and
Oh
seeing if
yeah.
somebody's also in alignment. Just like you could feel if somebody's in
You
alignment
feel it.
or if
You
there,
feel it.
there, there. Yes, there are bad actors out. There's actually great actors out there who
Correct.
fool you.
Correct.
That can happen. But you also mentioned, you know, I forget the phrase. It's like coaches coach because they can't do.
Hmm.
But that's crazy because a lot of them can. And then in the boxing world, it is true. You have some boxing coaches and coaches that can really dissect the game from the outside, but never step
That they
in the
can't
ring. But
do.
they're incredible,
Right.
incredible coaches. So, you just don't know. And like, you definitely have to find out
You
for
don't.
yourself. But I like the idea that you mentioned of the framework and the outline. At least you have
Mhm.
some kind of structure, before you go into an engagement or meeting somebody new ahead of time that you can at least follow. So
Correct.
I
Correct.
think that's
Like
great.
like yesterday I had a conversation with a group of guys who are raising money for golf teams, right? They're building out these golf teams. And I had a few questions that I wanted to ask on the call that for me qualify a legitimate group of people versus a non-legitimate group of people. And they answered everything. It was fine. You know, what comes beyond that? Well, you could search up every individual who was on that call, maybe do some background checks. But if you don't find anything, then you have to just, whatever your gut tells you, if it says, yeah, go for it, well, then go for it. There's no reward without risk at the end of the day. Everything, even though you might vet it to the last dot, there's always a risk to everything. And you got to be okay with that.
Yeah, no question. It's just weighing the risk as much as you can ahead of time and using that framework to do so. I love that. And
Mhm.
oh, by the way, Tony Robbins' original mentor and coach was Jim Rohn.
There
Um,
you go.
yeah,
He
which
surpassed
I'm
Jim
sure you.
Rohn by far.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, but isn't that the point, Sergio? Like anybody that
Absolutely.
you coach should eventually pass you.
Yeah.
If you did a great job coaching, they're gonna hopefully get better than you are at it.
That's the
Um,
biggest compliment anybody could give me. You know, if I have a client and they come in a few years later and they're like, my page is bigger than yours, or I'm making millions of dollars a month thanks to this. Fantastic. Great. That's
mhm.
that. I'm going to put you on my website now. send me
Yeah,
your,
exactly.
send me your
You're
testimonial.
my best testimonial ever. You're
Yeah,
my best third party validation I could ever ask for. Come here.
exactly.
Give me some
Exactly.
stuff for the brand, bro.
Yeah, man. Like, thank you. And usually I get those text messages from time to time from clients telling me like, hey bro, thanks to you, you know, I've been able to do this and that. And it always comes from a good place. I haven't had that negative experience where somebody with a big ego comes back and says, I'm bigger than you now. It never, thankfully, in my experience with coaching clients and things like that. But um usually people who have the humility to hire a coach or an agency are humble from the get-go. I never had the negative experience where like a client comes back and they're like, oh, I'm bigger than you now, like this and that in a negative way. There's always been a lot of humility with clients who might have surpassed me in certain aspects in business. And I'm just so happy for them. I saw a few clients recently at a networking event and all I could say was, I'm so proud of you. You know,
Yeah.
that is incredible to see from the outside how much you have grown, you know, keep
Mhm.
fucking flying, you know, and it all comes from a great place. So thankfully I'm blessed that I haven't had any negative, um, experiences with people actually crushing it and coming back and saying, I'm better than you. And it
Yeah, no, and
happens, man. It happens.
yeah, it definitely can. And then the other thing is like start connected, stay connected. You never know where people end up, and you never know how you
Correct.
might end up collaborating. And once somebody that you
100%.
were teaching, like I've had this happen in boxing, to then we're sparring and they're tagging me with shots that I'm just like, damn, like I did such a good job
Right.
coaching them,
Right.
and
100%.
I'm happy about it. That means I did that excellent job. And then now
Mhm.
there's somebody that I could actually look at as a colleague and potentially learn different things from, right? So
Exactly. Exactly.
that level of humility is huge. I've heard you also say that you're an introverted extrovert,
Mhm.
and like that phrase to
Damn,
me is
where'd you hear
very,
that?
because I am somebody that's kind of like that as well. Where like, and you get this,
Mhm.
sometimes I'm spending weeks behind the computer, right, and
Right.
then I'm at a coaching engagement in front of 50 people talking.
Mhm.
So there's that level of back and forth. But like, can you explain in your life, like, what does that mean to you and how it's shown up in your work and relationships?
Yeah. I love that you bring that up. I tell that to my fiance all the time. Um, what that means for me is I like my personal space. If I were to choose what I do today, if I had a big networking event or a speaking gig, I would obviously choose to stay home. That's my initial like, no, stay home. Feel good, comfortable. Um, and that's my introverted self. You know, I was always an introvert. I have had to train myself to become an extrovert because that's the only way that I would flourish on social media. And I became even more of an introvert trading because I didn't have to deal with people. You know, it was just me
Mhm.
and the screen and Chipotle for the next, you know, hour while I went to go eat. So uh, I became even more of an extrovert through that trading process. I mean, even more of an introvert through that trading process, but I've had to train myself to be an extrovert. I do go back and forth between it. You know, I choose to turn the switch. You know, today it's time to be an extrovert. Tomorrow's time to be an
Yeah.
introvert and, you know, spend the day at the pool and not speak to anybody. And that's totally fine. You know, I
Mhm.
take breaks sometimes, but that's what it means for me. You know, you have to know, pick and choose what person you have to be in each scenario, you know,
Yeah.
in order to be the most successful.
Yeah, it's like yesterday for me was a complete systems and process day, like
I
behind the
love those.
screen all day.
Yeah.
And then yeah, me too. And then today's a kind of day where I'm shooting the podcast
Mhm.
episode, and then after this, I'm doing a LinkedIn Live, and I'm complete extrovert mode.
Exactly.
And I think it's so interesting. Anybody in the audience, like, if you want to take anything from that with Sergio, I think it's that you're never stuck. Like, you're not just one way. You don't
Mhm.
have to just be like, I'm this introverted person, so I can't get in front of the camera. You can.
Right.
You just got to start. You just got to start trying and be willing to be kind of bad at it at first.
Mhm.
But do it if it feels aligned with your goals.
Exactly.
Doing it just for the sake of doing it to prove it to yourself, I don't think is necessary if it's not something that's actually going to move your life forward. If you're just going to give yourself stress over it,
Mhm.
stay an introvert, right?
Yeah, no,
Or
your choices should be 100% aligned with what your goal is, and no matter how you feel, that should dictate your next move. My washer just finished, so there's a noise in the background. Excuse
oh, you're good, man.
that.
It's all
It
good.
does this song, and I'm trying to figure out how to turn it off.
Mine
Um,
does. Mine does beep boop boop beep boop boop, and then it finishes with a song.
it's still going.
So
It's
it's
insanity.
all it's all
Give it a
good, man.
sec. Give it a sec. Okay. We'll sit down here in silence and listen. There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
some
So
people can't handle the silence, Sergio, either.
I love
So
I
like I'm
love the silence. It gives me time to think.
yeah.
You know, and with where I was going with the introverted extrovert, like you're absolutely right. As long as your actions are aligned with your goals, your emotions and how you feel should not hinder that, because that is the only thing you can control. You can control how you show up. Can't control how you feel sometimes, but you can control to show up either way. And that's what that means.
Yeah. You have, like Errol Dobler, Navy SEAL, that we've partnered with in our business, as well as
Yeah.
somebody that I've interviewed who I have tremendous respect for as a human being, teaches leadership, to businesses and sales teams. And, what he really talks about first and foremost is emotion. Like being
Mm,
able to recognize your emotion, is the first step in being an effective leader. If you
100%.
can't recognize your emotion and then be able to think and decide about it and then choose how you want to act,
Mhm.
a lot of people just go emotion and then just act.
Right.
So
Right.
that awareness is huge. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, a lot of people are very reactive. That was like one of the first books I read, and that really sparked something in me. You're either reactive or proactive. And it all has to
What
do
book
with
is that,
emotional.
Sergio?
I think it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People.
Oh, Stephen Covey.
Yes, yes, that was one of
Mhm.
the first books I read,
Great
and
book.
that stuck with me because it's true, man. Like you're either letting your emotions dictate your life, or you are the one deciding to show up differently no matter how you feel. And that's what's going to move the needle for you. If we only relied on how we felt to take action on something, we would never move from where we are, because we don't feel motivated every day to go to the gym or show up for our business. We don't feel motivated every day to do sales calls. We have to really push ourselves to do it sometimes. And
Mm.
systems come to play with that. So
Yeah, man. Makes it easier to push yourself when you got a good system.
exactly.
I pre- I appreciate you, Sergio. As we're rounding out the conversation, I have some like kind of like a lightning round. I call it the underdog round
Sure.
of questions. So we're just gonna hit these kind of rapid fire.
Let's do it.
So what does being an underdog mean to you, and what separates the underdogs who rise versus the ones who stay stuck?
Not quitting. That's it. Not quitting. And everything else that you heard on this podcast is relevant to that. How do you not quit? Being able to show up when you feel like shit. Being able to raise your standards when you feel like you have low standards. Recognizing the opportunities that are in front of you. Knowing that this isn't the end all be all. If there's a challenge, it's just part of your growth and character building. Not quit.
How do you define success today, and how is that different from when you started?
Success today is very different. I used to be a very materialistic person, to be completely transparent with you. I was raised in a family with money, and they showed a lot of their love. My grandfather specifically showed a lot of his love by gifting, so I picked up a lot on that. And that's still to this day a way that I show love to my fiance and other people who are in my close circle, is like, what can I buy for you? And that's just the way I operate. But my success has moved from that materialistic mindset to um, freedom and peace of mind. That's success for me. if you're able to pay your bills and you're able to live above the average and you're able to continue to grow your capital and income while you do less work, that to me is freedom, because I could go to Europe tomorrow if I wanted to and continue to operate my business. And peace of mind means that everything is going smoothly. My relationships, my loved ones are okay. I'm healthy. My fiance's healthy. My dog's healthy. When I have kids, my kids are healthy. That's all I want. I just want a family. I want my dog. And I want to have many houses across the planet that I could just travel to. I'm really serious when it comes to, not giving a fuck anymore about the fancy cars or the fancy watches. Like I have really shifted my perspective in the last 5 years about that.
Amen to that, man. I appreciate
Yeah.
the shit out of it. If you had, I want you to finish this sentence for me. The
You
world needs more people who,
care.
mm, so fucking true.
That's it. People need to care, man. Like people are so ruthless and emotionless, and they let their emotions, if anything, too emotional. They let their emotions dictate how they act. Um, that they don't see what it's causing, for many other people that might be involved in that circle. Like people they just need to care in everything they do. Be more intentional. How you do something is how you do everything.
Oh yeah. If somebody was listening right now and wants to reinvent themselves, where do you think they should start?
Reinvent themselves. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's going to depend on each individual, but I think you need to have your mind right. Okay. You need to have your body right. And it with those two, wonders can happen. If your mind and your body is right, you're more on your way to reinventing yourself than anybody who's trying to learn an AI course right now, because that's what's going to show you the answers. I'm very big on spirituality. I'm very big on books and quieting my mind, because that's where the biggest opportunities and ideas come from. They don't come from a loud mind. They come when you shut it off. And going to the gym, becoming healthy only increases character and fulfillment for yourself. It gives you that dopamine hit that you achieve something, and that sense of achievement stacked up every single day that you can truthfully control is what's going to start building character. If you're at a point where you really need to reinvent yourself and you're feeling depressed or you're feeling at a very low point in your life, just start with those two. Don't overcomplicate it. Mind, body, and spirit. It comes together.
Yeah, man. Have that faith, and that faith builds over time. And simple gets done, in the infamous words of somebody that we work with. It's so true. Sergio, I
It
just want to
does.
say thank you so much for your time today, bro. You've been
Of course.
gracious with it, gracious with sharing knowledge. I think so many people are going to get a lot out of this episode. As we round out, I'm curious, like, where can people connect with you or learn more about what you're doing, or even potentially work with you? How would they do that?
My Instagram page. That's my digital business card, Sergio Troconis _ exactly how you see it on my name. And Instagram, I have TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, but Instagram's the hub.
Cool. And what kind of person do you feel is the right person to work with you or learn from your coaching or branding programs if somebody's interested?
So I've worked with many different types of people for coaching, specifically on social media, branding, and business development. Usually it's starters, people who have the drive, they have skills that they want to put together. They just have too many ideas to streamline them, and they don't know how to brand themselves. That's more of professional beginners, people who are either in the corporate world who have accumulated skills and they don't know how to put it into action and have zero social media presence. So I'm there to help on the coaching aspect. On the services side, done for you stuff, I have worked from starters to entrepreneurs running businesses that generate hundreds of millions a year. So
Right.
there's really no perfect client there. Obviously, the perfect client is the one who does everything that we say as we operate with them, but that's never the case. It's very rare. But we can help. We've worked with online fitness coaches. We work with real estate developers, entrepreneurs, investors. We work with hedge fund managers. I mean, you name it. We've worked with
Totally.
5,000 people. There's been a lot of different businesses.
I understand that frustration. It's like, I'm telling you, like, this is the way to do it. Just do it. And they're just like, it's
Literally,
obvious that it'll help
literally.
you.
If
But
only you
all
just
good.
did this. That's
Yeah.
it.
I'll just do this
Right.
one thing, I promise. But all good, man. We do our best to help. And I love that about you, man. So thank you. And what's one thing that you hope people will take after hearing this conversation? Like, what's one action you hope that they'll take off
Um,
of it?
well, no matter where you are, I think there's context here that's relatable whether you are starting out and you're an 18-year-old kid just trying to figure it out and you're feeling the FOMO with everything you see online, or you're a business owner that's 45, 50 years old who knows that they're drying out because they're not getting online on social media. You could get
Mm.
context from both. And I hope that either either side of the coin that you're on, something here convinces you to work on yourself. You know, if you don't work with me and you work somebody else, at least you made that decision because of this. And that's all I care about.
I love that, man. I appreciate you, Sergio. This has
Likewise.
been another incredible episode of Great American Underdog, where we share stories of strength and success from real life underdogs. Please make sure that if you're not already following Sergio, go follow him on Instagram. Tons of value that he provides every single day. And there's just a lot to learn for sure. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you, brother.
Anytime.